Oh, snap. Guess what I saw? Oh, snap. Guess what I saw? Oh, snap. Guess what I saw? Oh, snap.
What up, dudes? It's your boy Isaac. And guess who I'm with?
Yo, man, it's your boy Late LK at OneYoungsta doing his thing, holding it down for y'all.
And we're about to talk Death Note right now because some news just dropped. We currently got Adam Wingard as the director, but your boy Keith Stanfield, who played in Straight Outta Compton as Snoop Dogg, he also played in the movie with Brie Larson called Short Term 12, and he was phenomenal in it. He's playing L in Death Note. And for those who don't know, Death Note is a manga about a character named Light Yagami, who is the son of a detective. He basically uncovers this book which allows him to write in names of criminals, or anybody for that matter, and any name he writes, that person will die. And if he even writes the way they die, if it's like physically possible for that person to die that method, it happens. And that's a trippy subject for a movie, right?
Yeah, man. It makes for a very, very detective style, creepy style, very intriguing style, and thriller style of a film. And I know there's a lot of stuff to throw into one basket, but when you check out Death Note, I think it's something that you'll really, really be thrown off by in a good way.
I agree. Because, like, we were just talking about it earlier, like the tone, if they can actually capture some of the tone from, like, maybe a David Fincher movie, like you mentioned, Seven, and add some horror undertones without relying on jump scares, you can have yourself a phenomenal movie. Because, like you mentioned, the anime is great. The foreign film was also great too, but just Americanizing and seeing these characters. And you also got Nate Wolff, who played in Paper Hearts.
Okay.
So like the cast is basically stacked. It's just that I'm not quite sure if they can handle all the diversity of the characters and have that much storyline for like if it's a movie. I mean, we're not really sure if it's a Netflix series or a movie, but do you think that would actually translate well in a movie? Because you saw the foreign movie, I have not yet.
Well, the foreign movie, the way it's set up, they break it actually into two different films.
Okay.
So if they do that, they can break it into two films and kind of rock it out and give you a chance to kind of like build and give you a slow burn of a film, similar to kind of like how Denis Villeneuve does his films. Or you could do a series and maybe give us, say, like 10 solid episodes and rock this thing out. And I just think 10 is a good number. But anyway, I think, if you give this show kind of like a good slow burn, because there's a cat and mouse game between I think it's like the special investigator or something, between him and the kid, I think you end up with a gripping thriller that has a couple of action pieces in there that could really, really knock crowds off their rocker for real.
Mm-hmm. Now, what kind of translation would you like to see as far as the Shimigami goes? For those who don't know, the Shimigamis are like basically demon-like figures who hold the power to the Death Note, and literally they have the ability to see when a person's going to die as well, like their lifespan. How do you think that's going to translate into the Americanized version of Death Note?
Now, that's something that I think could end up being cheesy depending on how they do it, but of course in the manga and in the Japanese version, he's able to float around and like disappear and things like that. So they could represent him very similar. I would like to see a design at least close to the way it is in the manga, because I do think they should look weird like they do on the manga. Mm-hmm. But since it's America, I feel like they might tone it down. But if you're able to tone it down and still keep the core weirdness, maybe something like an actual person with maybe like an actual person in a sort of a suit and then like enhanced digitally outside of that, similar to kind of how they, and I know this doesn't sound good, but how they did some of the ghosts in the new Ghostbusters film, where it's like it's a real actress, but then they like enhance her with some like bubbles or green stuff on her outfit or whatever, or lights or whatever, but just not make it look like Haunted Mansion. But I think they could, keep it like dark and gritty and give it like a kind of like a scary feel with a little bit of creepiness in there.
Word. And there's actually a good example of that too. Robert Zemeckis did this on a budget too for a movie he did in the 90s called The Frighteners, which stars Michael J. Fox and Gary Busey's little son, Jake Busey. But yeah, that's actually a good idea, especially since you're dealing with a Netflix movie. The budget can only do so much. But hey, man, closing arguments. You got anything else you want to say before we wrap this up?
Yo, if you don't know about Death Note, now you know. You should definitely check out the manga. And if you're not into reading like Mark Ellis is, then maybe you should check out the foreign film. It's in 2 different parts. And it's a good, in my opinion, it's a great cat and mouse game. And it's a great detective thriller.
Sure enough. And I actually recommend it too. Even if you're not into anime, it's got so many wonderful characters. The story is intriguing. And it's definitely something that, will give you a little bit of a culture shock as far as storytelling goes. But hey, where can all the people find you on the internet?
Man, they can find me at LayIllKid at OneYoungsta. That's youtube.com/LEILLKID. And of course, anywhere in those good interwebs at OneYoungsta.
Yeah, boy. And you guys can find me just by typing in Isaac Phillips on your local search engines or your YouTubes. And if you like what you hear and you want to hear more, subscribe for a brother and another brother. I'll leave a link in the description below. And thanks for watching. Deuces.
Peace.